Well, you know, if it's taken me 10 years to not write, to not write the next novel.
Can we have the next question from up the back?
Yes.
I thought you've been asked why do you write in English. My question is how do you write in English? You belong to a generation that's called immigrant writers, post-colonial writers, writers in translation. And their use of English is usually characterized by certain characteristics. You know, how to appropriate English, how to use it to convey their own themes, native themes and such. So how do you see yourself in that generation and their use of English?
Right. Well, quite honestly, I think this is much more a question for a critic than for the writer themselves. But, I mean, off the top of my head, I would say that I haven't been primarily interested in appropriating or breaking down or doing, you know, whatever to the language. I mean, I haven't, the sort of the Rushdie thing hasn't been my thing. I've been writing in English as it's written, but when it comes to a point where English, the Queen's English, if you like, or Newcastle English, or any English kind of English, won't do the job I need it to do in conveying a different reality, then I play with it and shape it and try to make it do what I want it to do. And on the whole, I found it very hospitable and sort of amenable to expressing other realities. Is that
Can I just spin that question for a second? Because one of the things that's fascinated me about what you've written in non-fiction is a profound anxiety and resentment about the way realities you see, particularly in Palestine but throughout the Arab world, are so grotesquely misrepresented by Western media. And though you don't say it, I take it by extension by some Western fictional writers. You, therefore, just as you don that mantle of the voice in the West, have a sort of duty, and indeed it's a welcome duty, to right some of those prejudicial wrongs, don't you? And when you say there are things you need to express with a different Arab voice, I'm fascinated by how you feel that the West listens to that when you speak.
Well, two things: how the West listens and righting wrongs, as it were. I think that the fact that my books have found an audience and found such a big audience, and have also gone into translation in lots of Western languages, is indicative of something. And the kinds of reader response, I guess, that I get, where I mean, you know, people say things like, I so much empathized with Asya al-Ulama in The Eye of the Sun, which I think is very strange because I'm a French man, for example. You know, I mean, that's exactly what sort of you want to happen. And I think that readers have been very, I mean, I think that if you write a good book and if you write sort of honestly, as it were, then you're going to reach your reader. It'll be a very, very hard case that refuses to be, you know, won over by your characters. So, so I think, I mean, when Aisha came out, which was the first collection of short stories, I grumbled because I mean, it had really good reviews, but they were all about sort of sorcery and Shahrazad and magic and weaving nets and all that discourse. But I think that ultimately it actually served me rather well, because when I sort of came hitting in with the tough stuff, there was, you know, so that's sort of, yeah. But on the issue of, on the issue of representation, it's a very delicate thing, really, where, I mean, I would always claim and stand up for the freedom of the artist, for example, to deal with whatever they want to deal with. But then on the other hand, there are a million stories out there to be told, and which ones do you choose? And that question, I think, is an interesting one. And I think that when you're answering that question, then it's not unreasonable to take the context and the politics of reception into account.
And there are, as you said right at the top of this conversation, truths that can be told in fiction that are deeper and more true than journalism. Sorry, I didn't take a question from the back there, and then the last one from him.
Yeah, just two questions anyway. If you're writing in English, make it easy for you to overcome, in a way, an inner censorship, which is maybe in Arabic would be more. And the second one is your coming novel. Would it be about something related to Egypt or your life here? Because like Tahir bin Jalloun, I mean, he's writing in French, but all his writings is about Morocco and his life over there and his memories over there.
Right.
Because we are multilingual as human beings. I think we can write in any language.
Yeah.
It's not irrelevant.
Right. Okay, I don't think that writing in English, well, it hasn't sort of made it, it hasn't made it any easier to deal with, or it hasn't made the reception, well, in The Eye of the Sun, it's 800 pages. Of those 800, there are about 15 which are sexually frank. And they were sort of picked up hugely at one point in the Arabic, well, in a sort of unpleasant part of the Arabic press. And I don't think they would have been if the book had been in Arabic, because it's not unprecedented. And it was really more to do with writing these things in English and therefore showing the world out there, you know, sort of showing us up in front of the foreigners, as it were. So I don't think that I sort of managed to sidestep censorship in that way. The inner censor, I honestly don't know. It would, I mean, I'd have to sort of go into psychoanalysis, I suppose, to answer that one. But I wouldn't know how to write what I write in Arabic, you know. I just wouldn't know how to do it. I'm sorry, the second one was, the next novel. Well, I think I continue to be interested by the interface of cultures. But also I am very interested now in sort of the way that the world seems to be headed towards sort of self-destruction. And I'm wondering whether people long ago, I mean, I kind of have an idea that at some point in ancient Egypt, people had the same feeling that we have today and found an answer for it. So that's what I'm writing about.
Last question.
Well, taking your credibility in both worlds, which you have established between the Western world and the Arabic world, don't you think you would consider as part of your political activism, in a way, to bring some kind of understanding, particularly intellectuals, taking the chaotic political situation and this understanding between East and West? Don't you think that you would be able to break these barriers